Oh, yay! It works. All right. We got it working. We'll get this started.
I
Awesome.
still have a please wait. So hang on.
Oh, I got you. Well, those who are jumping in, welcome to another episode of Sexuality Podcast. I'm Josh Corum.
I'm Victoria Hartman.
Yeah, I can see you fine. I think you're in
No,
here.
you can see me, but on my screen it says connecting, please wait, and it doesn't say broadcasting yet.
Oh, mine
Uh
says
huh.
recording. Yeah.
Yours says recording?
Mhm.
Not mine. So let's just roll.
Okay. Hopefully it
If
keeps
yours
it.
says recording, then because mine says not recording.
Yeah.
Okay,
It's so weird. Anyway,
I'll go with you.
yeah. So it's been a couple weeks, right?
Yep.
2 weeks.
Yep. Been a couple weeks. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm firmly in Tennessee officially.
You are. You
Yeah.
are. You are getting settled in still, I see.
Yeah. I haven't really unpacked much. I'm terrible about buying furniture. I got to buy like a bunch of office furniture, and I'm just
Uh,
not just so lazy about it. Plus, the elevator's out in our building, so
oh.
I'm like, I'm not carrying. And I live on the we live in the fourth floor, and I'm
Oh
like,
God.
I'm not carrying this up 4 floors.
No. Don't they have delivery?
They do actually. I feel bad being someone who enjoys a sport where I carry heavy things. I
Yeah.
did order groceries and have them delivered today, and I had to
Oh
carry them.
my God. Quarantine is over.
I know,
Now you're quarantining?
but I'm a big dude. It's hard to walk up and down stairs.
Oh God. Okay.
About the third floor, I'm just like, you remember? Do you remember that Adam Sandler, the like first Adam Sandler um, album where it's like Fatty McGee or Wheezy McGee or whatever his name is?
No.
He's this fat guy who like wanted to take the stairs and just starts wheezing. It's like that's what it felt like. It's like like walking down the hallway, just trying to gasp air. It's awful.
Oh,
All the
you
dogs are
bring
barking at me.
carrying all those muscles up the stairs, huh?
It's a lot. It's a lot to lift.
You buffalo.
Carrying around all this ass. Hard to,
Yeah. Yeah, your ass.
get winded.
Yeah.
Oh man.
As for here, I mean everything's kind of just trucking right along. I found out today from our producer that we now have a location team. And if you know anything about filmmaking or production or anything, the location team, they're basically the location scouts. Okay.
Hmm.
And they go out and they scout the locations where you're going to film. And we have an active location team at this point. And that's a big deal because now they're starting to book where we're going to be traveling to for the show. So,
Oh, cool.
yeah, and I had actually sent in just some random suggestions here in Nevada, and I got word back today. They're like, okay, we sent it over to the location team, and I'm like, we have a what? We have a location
A
team, and
location team?
yeah, so I was just like bouncing around today, going, oh my god, we have a location team. So, um, and we're supposed to start like serious filming in August, because he wants to be done. Our producer wants to be done by December, so
Oh, wow.
oh, yeah. So big things are
Okay.
coming. I'm
Yeah.
excited.
Season one.
Season 1, yeah, finally. So I'm jazzed.
Yeah, it should be.
I'm jazzed. And I'm gonna enjoy June and July, and I'm gonna try to get some camping in and stuff like that just to before the hustle really starts, really just disappear into the woods as much as I can because the rest of the year
Yep.
I won't be able to. So what do we got today? What are we you had something on your mind now for actually quite some time. And you brought it up a lot over the course of the last couple of years.
Right.
So
Well,
what's on your mind?
one thing we haven't really
Hmm.
dived into,
Yeah, dove into.
dove into on this
Yeah,
show is gender. We do a little bit. We did that gender onset rapid gender
right.
dysphoria piece, but that was critiquing the science of that, right?
Yep.
Um,
Yeah, and we actually had
and
some issues with it.
we had some issues with it, right? We critiqued a lot of the science. So we
Hmm.
don't really talk about gender a lot on this podcast, and I feel like we're maybe doing a little disservice because of how we, address things. We're so good at oh my god, weird.
Being
Um,
contrarian.
being contrarian and diving into we're all about nuance and making things complicated and stuff like that. And I feel like we're at a good place to maybe try that a little bit today. At least I am.
Okay.
And I think we can do it in a way that I think it's going to be just make things muddled. We're not going to obviously come up with any solutions, but just making this argument, making this conversation just a little bit more complicated. I don't think people are really addressing.
Okay.
And a lot of this stemmed from a question that popped in my head one day. Like woke up and I just had this thought.
Oh,
So we talk about the uses of gender, right? Like gender roles. Why do we have gender roles? Why do we have gender norms? We talk about all that stuff. We talk about
do we
how
talk
gender
about the
is used.
why, or do we talk about the fact that they are, and there's the disagreement in the there's a disagreement in the discourse about what is valid, what isn't, what should be recognized by various state legislatures, et cetera, et cetera. Medicalization. That I'm not. I don't know that I come across too many conversations about why.
Right, exactly. We don't It's almost like people are arguing about this thing that they just automatically believe exists, right? Which it does, right?
It
Gender
does,
roles and
yeah,
gender norms exist.
yeah.
They talk about rather than talking about which the thought I had was what's the purpose of gender? And then why the gender roles outside of that, right? So, right, we never talk about why. We never talk about why we have gender.
What's the
You know,
point?
what's the point?
Oh,
Like yeah. So even
and
in
that's an
Deborah
interesting
Southern,
question. What's the point of gender?
what's
Huh?
the point? Yeah, even in endeavor in the biological perspective, they argue the point of gender, from what I see, are these like ways of displaying aspects of masculine and feminine, or being
How do
the
you define masculine and feminine based on what?
right,
Oh,
these just characteristics that biologically male entities do and biologically female entities do that just
okay.
get associated with these two binaries, right?
Yeah.
Aspects of these binaries. So gender becomes this secondary thing to biological sex. That's a way of to explain, exploring this thing. Now,
Mm,
if the biologists say like Deborah So and all and the positivists, the essentialist people talk about gender, that means gender is somehow innate, right? So if there's a biological component to gender, it's
yep.
innate.
Yep.
So logically speaking, along that same line, that means gender has an evolutionary purpose.
Reproduction.
How so?
No, I'm asking
Right,
reproduction.
right, right. So it would be somehow
That's their
lumped in.
my basic saying is that their argument that it's reproductive, that it
That's
has
just it. They don't have an argument. I've
oh,
yet to
oh,
see one. I've yet to
oh,
see one. There's a purpose of gender. They
oh,
just it's almost talk about the effects of gender or how gender is used rather than like, all right, well, what's the evolutionary purpose of gender? If gender is biological, as in like, a lot of people want to argue,
yeah,
if there is a biological component to gender that you cannot escape, that the social construction people got it wrong. All right, well
oh,
then what's the biological purpose of gender? And I kind of have an idea. I mean,
okay.
arguably, so if we're talking strictly from that like biological paradigm aspect, the purpose would be what?
I'm
Laughing
sorry,
at me.
I'm distracted by the words on your shirt.
Oh, this is my right over here, right? Like kind of that.
I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It's a name brand. It's a brand. It's a brand of
It's
strongman
a
clothes.
brand?
Yeah, it's a brand.
Okay. I just like, come on, my eyes are wide. I'm like, does his shirt say kind of fit, kind of fat?
It does. On the back, I don't know what's on the back of it. It's like oh, it's
It's a
so they have the
logo.
yoke. Yeah,
Sorry.
they do a bunch of stuff with food and like putting in weightlifting or strongman stuff. I think
Okay.
this is the guy's carrying a big yoke, and rather than like weights on the yoke, they're pancakes.
Okay.
Yeah. Like the
Okay.
one I've got is this guy's got a big stone, but instead of a stone, it's a donut hole. Yeah,
Okay, I have to look the brand up just for shits and giggles at this
yeah, it's a
point.
good brand. It's a good
Okay,
brand.
okay. Anyway,
Yeah, they got
sorry.
popular real fast. They're actually out of California.
Of course.
Sorry we
Okay.
derailed. Sorry, Dexter.
Okay, okay.
So the purpose would be
Yeah,
if gender is in relationship to biological sex,
yeah.
then gender is ways of displaying aspects of biological sex, but with certain caveats. In my view, gender becomes the avenue to which we display the characteristics that we want or that we think the mate we want would be attracted to.
Well, that's awfully assumptive in nature to start off with,
Well, I mean that's kind of
because
how
how do you
nature
know
works,
what
isn't it?
that potential mate really wants? But I digress. Please continue.
No, you're right. But I mean, isn't that why peacocks have, their feathers and animals do their dances and like that's a little easier to do on that
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah,
biological
yeah, yeah.
level that they
Right.
can display these aspects of of gender essentially,
Right.
if it's
Because it
connected
gets
to
really
biological
murky in terms
sex.
of sexual attraction. You might have some people who are
Sure.
attracted to the more feminine, or the
Mhm.
more masculine, or the more androgynous, or the non-binary. I mean, attraction is not black and white
Right.
in humans.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
You're right. You're right. So it makes it more complicated. So,
Yeah.
but again, this is a critique of that. It's a critique, but also trying to understand that biological argument of gender. All right. So,
Okay. All right.
so if we're making this argument that it's biological or it's innate somehow, then what's the evolutionary purpose of it? And the only thing I can think of is okay, then gender is how I display my sexual characteristics on a social level
On a social
that
level.
to attract a mate that I think a mate would find me attractive. Like, it's like, all right, well, I'm gonna want a mate who wants a really big guy.
Okay.
So I'm gonna act, because I am a big guy.
Yeah.
So I'm going to display my gender in accordance with that framework or of what I think this person is going to be attracted to. But in a sense, it's also based off of what society says
Mm.
that you think is supposed to be attractive.
Uh-huh. Right.
Because it's not like women get secret messages about what they're supposed to be attracted to. Men see those messages too.
Yeah.
And so, and then we construct these ideas in society about how we're supposed to behave. The gender roles and gender norms all go into that notion of gender
Yeah.
of I'm going to act a particular way in order for the opposite sex or whatever I'm attracted to be attracted to me.
Yeah.
Because we always forget that. We always forget that aspect of attraction. We never think about like, all right, well, I need to attract a mate. It's not just I'm attractive and therefore I get mates. I need to be able to attract mates or attract partners.
Mhm.
And so I feel like gender is that unspoken or misinterpreted aspect of that how to attract a partner.
Not to ignore the asexual folks amongst us and those who are not interested in attracting mates, which exist.
But I think they still fall into the
I'm
whether or
sure
not
from a
they
social influence
yeah,
perspective.
from a
Yeah.
social influence.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Because there's this idea that you're abnormal if you're alone.
Hmm.
Right. Anyway, go ahead. Yeah, and
Right.
I think that goes right back to like evolution. But anyway, go ahead.
Sure.
Spreading your
Yeah.
seed and eggs and all that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so when we're adding this component of gender onto sexuality,
Mm,
as a means to, right, because it kind of fits in. Like my gender expression, how I express the gender that I am, is not in a vacuum.
right.
It's in relationship to everything else.
Right.
And it's in relationship to what gender is. Like, those displays of sexual characteristics. Um, right? that are socially kind of compounded.
Yeah.
Um,
So I mean,
but
this thought came to my head, and I may be way off base here, and I don't know where the thought came from. But if you were to take away, if you were, I'm probably way off base here, but if you were to take attracting a mate from a social construct perspective out, and you are strictly going on, we have to reproduce, wouldn't it be irrelevant what their gender expression is? It would basically be this part fits into this part, and this results in a baby, and nothing else would matter.
theoretically, yeah.
Okay. It's
But
just,
even in
I don't
animal,
know. It's not a formed thought in my head, but it just kind of popped
sure.
in there.
But even in mammalian species, or actually all species that
All
reproduce
species. Yeah.
sexually,
Hmm.
there's displays.
Yeah.
We talk about them as being these instinctual displays, but I feel like those are displays of gender. They're displays of their fitness, right? And their
Yeah.
sexual of
Sexual
so
availability and reproductive fitness.
right. I feel like, why aren't we categorizing those aspects of gender as gender?
Um, right.
Right.
Are we? Aren't we? I don't know.
I don't think we are. Or very little.
I don't dive into the gender arguments very much because so many of my colleagues do.
Mhm.
Right.
Right, but we don't they're never really displayed like that. We never really talk about animals and their displays as being gendered.
Oh,
They become their biological instincts because we see that. We
yeah.
never think about them as gender the way we think about gender as this, like, social aspect,
Okay.
when it is. Like, I know animals aren't sentient beings, but they still have some social aspects to their behavior,
Mm-hmm.
especially when it comes to mating.
Mm-hmm.
So why isn't, like, a dance or, some other display of strength or dominance or something like that gendered behavior? It would fall in the air. Actually, it would really help their argument as being a biological imperative, and or that gender is biological, if they would make that step. Be like, all right, gender is biological, and here's examples in the natural world of these are gendered behaviors. But they rarely, if ever, I've actually never heard anyone actually say that.
And
So
I
when
don't
we talk about,
know that, because that argument is made in terms of homosexuality, and those who are against homosexuality go, nobody fucking cares. We don't care that 10% of the animal kingdom is gay or whatever, same sex attracted or whatever. We don't care because humans are sentient and we could make the choice and God this and etc. So I don't
Mhm,
that making that argument, I don't know, would convince anybody.
convince anybody. What do you mean?
Well, you're arguing, why aren't we making gender a biological imperative, right?
I'm not making that
No,
argument.
you're not
They
making
are
it.
making that.
Oh, they are
Yeah,
making that. And
Deborah
you are
So makes
doing
that argument.
Deborah So makes that argument.
Yeah, another
And your argument is
biologist.
contrary to that?
No, I'm saying they talk about gender as being a biological imperative, or being biologically innate.
Okay.
This is what I see in some of the literature. This is what Deborah So talks about,
Yeah.
several other people, that gender is not a social construct, that it is biological.
Oh, yes,
That's the
that's true.
argument,
Right, right.
right?
Yep.
So if in fact it is biological, why aren't they making the step to show that animals that do their displays, especially males, as a gendered behavior? They don't. They report it as an instinctual sexual behavior. But in fact, it is a gendered behavior because it's what we do with gender. I'm making that leap, that
Yeah.
our displays of gender, our dances, our, you know, I'm this is an analogy, right?
Yeah.
So because we don't have those, oftentimes they are wrapped up in our gender roles and our gender norms. Those
Mhm.
are our displays, but
Mhm.
then also our gender expression, which, I hate to say it, most gender expression is bought off the rack at whatever store you like to go to. So, we consume our gender in a lot of ways, but our consumption is display.
Mhm.
And display is just that we're displaying. We've taken it to this idea that it's something our gender is ours. It's doesn't matter, and it doesn't really have a purpose. It absolutely has a purpose. I think the
Mhm.
purpose is to display our gender so we can attract what we want to attract,
'Kay.
much like the animals display.
Mhm.
But we've lost that somewhere. We've lost that along the way and made gender this very, like, concrete, salient thing that is part of our identity when it absolutely has a purpose. And the underlying purpose is attraction. But
Yeah, but, you're
through
wading back into the sexualization of gender and there are certain camps that have a real issue with that.
Yeah, but on the same token, on the same coin, they'll say that sexuality and gender are related, and this is how they're related.
Mm,
They just a lot of times I feel like in a lot of the readings and that I've seen, they don't make this connection. They don't
mm,
make this connection between sexuality and gender, that
'kay,
your gender expression is in fact you displaying what you want to display in hopes to attract what you hope it to attract.
okay.
Even with trans women, for example, we've seen the research. We know a lot of trans women initially start off as gay men, right? Or there's a lot of ties to gay men, autogynephilia, stuff like that. Like a lot of D-trans or D-sisters.
Autogynephilia is not inherently something that is,
Right,
uh
but I'm making the connection to it.
oh,
That even in D-sisters, they show, that they were gay men that were more worried about homophobia, and so they felt like if I transitioned, I wouldn't be a gay man, I would be a woman who is attracted to men. So there is that component of trans women particularly. So,
um, do we have research to back that up?
yeah, I can't
Okay.
quote it,
Because
but
my
it's there.
my my experience has been and it's probably very limited, but I've seen more um, straight men who were gender dysphoric, who maintained their sexual attraction to women than I
Mhm.
have, or expanded to a bisexual or pansexual orientation. Not, I haven't seen too many. I mean, I know that they're out there, but my personal experience has been more exposure to heterosexual men who then had struggled with gender dysphoria, started as a cross dresser, and then transitioned to female and went from heterosexual when they were men to pan or bisexual when they had transitioned.
See, in my experience, it's been a lot of trans women are attracted to men
Okay. Well, my
because
my
that's
my exposure would
right,
be limited because that's not expertise.
right.
Yeah.
Well, it's just what I've seen in public too. Plus, on dating apps and the new trend, or not trend, but there for a while was trending the argument of finding trans women attractive. That if you're a straight man, you don't find trans women attractive, then it's transphobia, which is a whole other ball of
Yeah, that's
wax.
a whole other yeah,
Right.
right.
But so there's a lot of trans women out there that are attracted to men and can't date, and men won't date them
Yes.
because of that whole argument.
Yeah.
So you have this So you still have that component of displays of gender in attempts to attract what you want to attract.
Hmm.
But what's interesting about that too is now I'm going to go the social constructionist side
Okay.
is you have a lot of people moving away from that.
Oh.
In my opinion, like a
Okay.
lot of the ideology. And so this is where, this is the nuance of this, right? So if I'm a positivist or if, I'm a biological essentialist, gender is this is the purpose of gender to attract displays of biological sex or displays of sexuality in order to attract, right? But the social constructionist in me, or from that lens, I'm like, well, yes and no. I mean, yeah, we have that component, but we've moved so far away from that that gender is now just this aspect of identity. right? So it's just a willingness to fit into a category or a desire to be a category or no category for that matter.
Right.
Um, uh, for the purposes of belonging, to find the role, to find where you fit,
Mm,
or find out why maybe you don't fit as easy, um, and then trying to negotiate that aspect, right?
mm, mhm.
So it's so I feel like it's because we are sentient beings, it has become more complicated that we can't just dive solely into the biological side of it. But if so it's like this both and it's like, all right, well, if it really has this foundation of displays of gender for, this biological component,
Mm.
then what about this biological or this like social constructionist or queer theory aspect of it where it's like, well, now it's just all identity. Now it doesn't. You're right. We do try to desexualize gender, right? In a lot of ways.
I think we
So it
try to
becomes
desexualize almost everything.
well, that's true. So
Well,
just
we're
making this
sexualizing everything.
right.
Yeah.
We sexualize burgers, but we want to desexualize sexual communities
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah.
are based in sex.
Yeah, yeah,
That's
yeah, yeah.
that's legit.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just I feel like it's making this conversation way more complicated. Maybe I'm diving too deep into it, thinking about too much, but I feel like it's this component that we're not really addressing as the purpose of gender. You know, so all the people that are smarter than me in biology and even people are smarter than me in sociology, let's get together. What's the purpose of this? That's what I want to know. What's the purpose of gender? You
What's
can
the
sit here all
purpose?
day. Yeah, you can sit here all day and talk about how we use
Yeah,
it, roles and norms
yeah,
and things
yeah,
like
yeah.
that. That's fine. Well, why do we have it in the first place?
That's a good question.
Yeah, like that's what I
Because I
go
think
back
we
to.
all
Why?
go on autopilot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's almost like gravity. We just accept it
Yeah.
as is and then react to it accordingly. It's
Right.
like, well, why do we have it in the first place?
Right, right.
You know,
Hmm.
and then yeah. So with that,
I was gonna say you got me
one
stumped
thing,
on this one.
yeah,
Because in sexology, so just to dive into my training, which is probably outdated at this point because it was 10 years ago, but
mhm,
my training on gender was as a sexologist, we manage. That's what we do. We manage. We research and we manage. We take a Keynesian perspective. We don't judge, we research and manage. And um, my training was uh, transgender um, folks are real, and our job is to help them transition to the gender that they identify with no restriction. So, in other words, get rid of gatekeepers and let them transition
mhm,
and aid them along the way, by providing unconditional and non judgmental support. And that includes children. And like I said, gender wasn't my area of expertise. I studied predatory sexual behavior, so um, I never really dove into it. It was just here's our position and so forth. And I've watched my colleagues over the course of the last several years get mired in disagreement and
mhm,
worse with what they define as trans activism. And you have people like Deborah and so forth that are, you know, um, what would you call it? Contradicting the trans activism narrative, right?
mhm.
And that's about as far as my delving into gender really goes. So I'm not going to claim any kind of expertise or even sufficient knowledge to tackle this topic. But
Yeah.
your uh, your thoughts definitely give me some pause because I don't know that I've ever given it second thought. Why gender?
And I think I think maybe that's where we're losing, not losing the argument, but maybe these 2 points are talking past each other, is because they're coming from different perspectives on what the purpose is, and there's no agreement on the purpose because they don't really talk about it and don't really dive into it. They
Mm,
just talk about the effects and how it's used
mm.
rather than the purpose. It's
Well, and
like,
then
"Alright,
the
well."
deny and the effects of the denial of or denying those who, like, for instance, someone who says my pronouns are, and then the argument around that, or bathroom laws, or what have you.
Right.
It's mired in that rather. I don't know. I can't recall anyone ever saying why gender.
Yeah.
This doesn't. I'm not. It's not ringing a bell anywhere.
Mhm. Yeah, I went through a lot of scholarship searches and stuff like that, and I couldn't find anyone talking about the purpose or why, um, we use
Seems
gender
like that
the way
question
we do.
alone would change a lot of the argument that's being made.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, not to be too grandiose about my ideas, but I feel like it would, because it becomes an axiomatic framework.
Mm,
That the absolute tier of foundation of where all this comes from.
mm,
Where can we build these arguments?
mm,
And you know, I, uh, if it is a biological imperative, then what is it?
mm.
Tell me about it. Break it
Right.
down for me biologically. And if you
Right.
can't, then, all right, well, sociologists or, the social constructionists, the queer theory folks, like, all right, well, break it down for me. What's the purpose of gender? Not how it's been used, but
Right.
what's the purpose?
Why? Right.
Why?
Right.
Why is it there?
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
And to make this, yeah, yeah. And even to make this conversation even a little more complicated, not necessarily on that, but kind of on a tangent, we really haven't really dove into transgender in sports, which as an athlete of multiple sports,
Mm,
it's an interesting topic for me.
mm.
And I just
Well,
wanted
because
to add,
you're in well, no, not anymore, but you were in roller derby pretty heavily, right?
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, about 6 years I played roller derby, men's
Yeah.
roller derby for 6 years.
Because I think
And an
what a year or
article,
two ago you won like second place nationally or something.
yeah, yeah, we won the world actually.
World. Okay.
Yeah,
Wow. Okay.
2017,
Hmm.
I was second in the world,
Hmm.
the team I was playing for.
Right.
And it's timely because, an article just came out in Teen Vogue, not that I, read Teen Vogue this month, no,
Okay.
not that I read not that I read Teen Vogue, but I think it's important, and the article was talking about trans folks in roller derby, and a lot of people probably don't know this because nobody watches roller derby, is, roller derby has a very loose
Mhm.
gender, uh policy.
Yeah, I have a friend who, when she was transitioning, one of her havens was roller derby.
Yeah,
Yeah, she got into it
very,
really
very.
heavy, really heavily.
And so you have a couple entities. One of the popular ones is WFTDA, which is Women's Flat Track Derby Association. And then we have Men's Roller Derby Association, MRDA. And then you have juniors, which is JRDA, Juniors Roller Derby Association. They're actually three separate entities.
Okay.
So with women's roller derby, there for a while, they had kind of Olympic style gender policies of requiring certain hormone levels and things like that. Men's roller derby, we had no gender policy, meaning if you, whatever gender you were, if you wanted to skate with us, you could, just knowing that you were skating with men.
Mm,
And then JRDA has gender policy, has an open gender policy as well. It's open gender to all. They have different levels because they go from like 11 to 17.
yeah.
They have different levels of play, so it isn't as aggressive. So
Okay.
it protects the young ones. Like a 17-year-old boy, smacking the shit out of 11-year-old girl or something like
Right.
that.
Right.
It's different levels of play. So that's how they protect that.
Okay.
But now WFTDA doesn't have a gender policy for the most part. It's very open, except for cis men. Cis men are not allowed to play on WFTDA. That's really their only gender policy. Now, it's not always been that way, but that's the way it is now.
Hmm.
And I wanted to speak from this when we're talking about trans folks in sports. we never talk about team sports versus individual sports. In fact, we don't talk all the talking points I've seen on Joe Rogan, on Fox News, and all this stuff. They never differentiate between team and individual sports. In fact, they only talk about individual sports, bike
Like,
riding, powerlifting,
okay,
track and field,
track and field,
like
right?
where it's right. So it's one person competing against that. So I wanted to make this conversation again more complicated, talking about team sports. But what's interesting is they bring up people from team sports, but they never talk about the team sport aspect. Like two of the people that brought up a lot, two of the trans folks that brought up a lot when they're talking about athletes are Gabriella Ludwig,
Okay.
who was the basketball player. She was a basketball player for Mission Community College in California. She was 6'8", 220 pounds, and 50 years old. So you have a 50-year-old person playing college basketball. Now, it was a trans woman on the team. Now, they want to bring this person up, and it's fine. They can do that. But they don't go into the nuance, the minutia around this person playing basketball. Firstly, they're playing at a community college in California. Like not part of the NCAA, it's part of the CCAA, which is the California Community College Athletic Association. So it's not even an NCAA thing. And I dug into this person, I dug into their records. This person played in 2012 to 13 and the 13-14 season. And you would think some of the arguments that they have about the excellence of men being or biologically male people being in women's sports would play out in this. Absolutely not. That team was shit. That team was terrible. They won like maybe a couple games. I think overall they were ranked, what was it? 21st, maybe? Yeah, 2003, 2002 to 2003, they were ranked 21st. And then the second year of Gabriella's playing, they were 38th. And the only reason they were 21st, I found, was they had a star player, a cis woman star player who actually broke a bunch of records in in that like association. So it was a cis woman who was actually their star player.
Okay.
Now, Gabriella Ludwig was all conference one time, just once. There were two other women who were all conference as well.
Yeah.
But ultimately, like having this person on their team didn't better the team, right?
Okay.
By any at all. And then the other person they talk about is Hannah Mounsey, I think.
Okay.
Hannah Mounsey is the Australian rugby or Aussie rules football player, like who is 6'2" and 220 pounds, used to be a handball player,
Okay.
and that transitioned to rugby and Aussie rules football. Um, and I was trying to look up their stats about where they play, and they play on some tiny little league in Australia, like Melbourne somewhere. Like it's an inconsequential team. Like they're not even again, and their team doesn't win. Their team doesn't like smoke everybody. So
Well, it
when
kind of
we
makes the argument that if you have trans women on a team, that they'll perform better and also make the cis women obsolete. Isn't that the argument?
yeah, right, and that's kind of the argument, and the evidence that I find is like that's not true. And in fact, in my years of playing roller derby, that's absolutely not true.
Yeah, and
Um,
that's what that article kind of pointed
right,
out. Yeah.
right. Um, Yeah, and that's what I wanted to speak of. Is like in roller derby, you have a lot of trans and queer folks and non-binary folks that play in roller derby in WFTDA and MRDA. And in WFTDA, just because they're on the team doesn't mean they're going to skate very well. In fact, there were some who were really terrible skaters, and there were some who were really awesome skaters. Like the range was wide. It wasn't just that they were, biologically male. that,
Yeah.
had transitioned and they walked on with skates and they were dominating. No, not remotely. Not even close.
Well,
Again, a wide range, and it didn't matter their size. There was one I saw who was actually close to my size, who was fucking terrible.
oh,
They weren't on a good team. They were big. They took up a lot of space on the track, but they were a fucking shit skater. At least they were when I saw them.
yeah.
It didn't make a difference. It absolutely did not make a difference.
So when
Um,
are you so it sounds like what you're implying is that the arguments that a lot of these legislators are making when they're doing like no trans women in sports and so forth laws, that really they are making those laws based on bad
well,
science,
y- mm, I don't know if
disproven
that's
science. I
true.
mean, what are they?
I think the argument I'm making is they're not taking into consideration the difference between team sports and individual sports. And I
Oh,
think it's important to make those distinctions because team sports and individual sports are set up are vastly different. So, and I think it's important that if you're in a team sport, a trans person on your team is not going to make or break your team. Now, there have been some really great trans skaters in roller derby,
yeah,
but they weren't the top skaters. I mean, they were top tier skaters,
yeah.
but again, their existence on the team didn't make the team win any more or any less. They
Okay.
contributed, it helped. Like some of your top team, Portland. Say Portland is as a huge like
Which Portland, south, east or west?
it's just Portland. Their league is 500 members big.
Well,
It's
there's
a
a
massive
Portland,
league.
Maine, and there's Portland, Oregon.
Oh, sorry, Portland, Oregon.
Okay.
Yeah, Portland, Oregon. Um, their team is huge. Their league is enormous, and there's a couple trans people in there, and they're decent skaters, but they are no means the best skater. Um, the some of the best skaters on that team are the cis women.
No,
Like
roller derby is a big deal in Oregon.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
it's real big.
And they have a very
Um,
like inclusive policy kind of all throughout
mhm,
Oregon when it comes to gender. Yeah.
yeah, and it just goes to show that the difference, that nuance of team sports versus individual sports has to be I think should be recognized and acknowledged that a trans person isn't going to make a break your team. Now, I am going
Good
to
luck with
go,
that.
yeah, right. It's like it's all sports. It's all sports. It's not all
Yeah.
sports. Like a basketball player is not the same as a power lifter, not remotely.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
it's not the same thing.
Well, and I
Uh,
think a lot of the argument that they're also making is kind of like women are going to be in danger if you have trans people on their team, not just in terms of their performance or being beaten, but also that they are, inviting the attention of sexual predators.
oh, right, right,
Uh, because,
yeah,
oh, now changing, in the changing rooms,
hmm,
yeah.
exactly.
I think they're not
So,
admitting that it plays into that, but I think it plays into that.
right. I can tell you I never changed in front of my dude teammates. I always went to the bathroom and changed clothes if I needed to. I didn't I didn't need to swing dick around the locker room. That's not really
Well,
something
and
that maybe in college it
I
happens
have,
more,
yeah, I
but
struggle with that argument anyway because, like, trans people are already targeted. The likelihood that they are going to target others, being in the restroom of the people with whom they identify gender wise,
mhm,
I don't even think the research bears that out. That is separate from those, and how do you tell, right? That's the question. How do you tell? That's separate from those who would attempt to access women's bathrooms by wearing women's clothing because they are
right.
predatory in nature. And we keep seeing this mixture of, well, trans people are weird and they're mentally ill and so they're there to molest people in the bathroom. I'm like, no, there are mentally ill people who are predatory, and then there are trans people who are simply trying to be the gender that they feel on the inside. Can we please
Mhm,
stop mixing all of that up?
right.
But yeah, I guess how do you tell?
Sure.
Yeah. Like
But
you
I don't
said, you
want
got a
I
6'8" player on your team, right? Or
right.
6'7", right? 6'3", whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. I think but I don't want roller derby to get off completely. They're not like the end all be all saints of this. Like
Oh, okay.
there's a lot of women, actually cis women skaters, who don't like men skaters. They don't like the fact that there's men's roller derby. Um,
Is it just a
Still today.
derby thing, or is it like a feminazi thing?
It's a they don't think it should exist because it's stealing their sport. Every year there's uh, RollerCon. Well, there hasn't been the last couple of years, which
Right.
is a big international roller derby convention in Vegas, where
Yeah.
there's just games all day,
Yeah.
scrimmages and games, several tracks, stuff like that.
Yeah.
They distinctly have no male. They have open gender bouts, and they have women only bouts. Like not basically no cis men. You can be trans, you can be open, you can be non-binary, you can skate on that track, but
Okay.
if you're a cis man, you can't skate on that track during that time. There
Well,
are,
you've gone to RollerCon. You didn't skate?
I did. I just, I'm just saying that even though they have this inclusionary policy, it is limited, showing that even though there are this inclusion, they still have exclusion of cis men in some reigns. Like there are some women skaters who some trans and non-binary skaters who don't want to skate with cis men. Now there were a couple bouts that were cis men only, but there were maybe like two or three out of several hundred that took place over the course of a week.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Whereas there are a wide number of female women only bouts.
Mhm.
I say that as a dual category: women, non-binary, female,
Right.
whatever, however you want to identify. Just no cis men are allowed to skate. So derby has its aspects of being inclusive, but it's also has this like a subcategory of folks that are like anti men's derby, which I think is interesting.
Mm,
Um, you know, and one other aspect that I've seen, and this is complete conjecture. This is just me spouting my own experiences. So when we're
mhm.
talking about trans folks in sports, particularly trans women in sports, and this kind of touches back to this aspects of displays of gender.
'Kay.
One thing I've noticed, and I've seen it on the track, I've seen it in Derby, and I'd be interested to see if it's in other places. Trans folks, even ones who want to like dive into the binary, right? So they are women. There's certain aspects that I see where they will tone down their aggressiveness in order to prevent being seen as too masculine, because oftentimes aggressiveness is associated with masculinity. So it's a toning down of aggressiveness in order to maintain a certain level of femininity that they are how they want to display themselves.
Mhm.
So in doing so impacts their athletic output,
Mhm.
right? Their athletic display.
Mhm.
And I saw it trying to remain fragile or dainty or more feminine. I hate using those words in association with femininity,
Yeah.
but these are just like these stereotypical behaviors.
Right.
I'm not saying that women are like this. I'm just saying that these are the behaviors that are
Yeah.
sometimes displayed,
Yeah.
and that I see in trans and femme folks or what have you, in order to prevent being seen as too masculine, which I
Mm.
think is really interesting when we're talking about how this would play out in athletics
Well, I
on
think
those
you would
levels.
see that though in anyone who's transitioning, is adopting stereotypical gendered behavior, or what's
Yeah.
defined as stereotypical gendered behavior, right?
So is that going to impact their performance?
Uh, well, maybe not when they're at a cocktail party, but I suppose it could in a sports bout, maybe.
Yeah. It makes me
Might
wonder,
be
like,
holding back.
yeah, would they be
Or
holding?
trying to like, if it was a trans man trying to be stronger
Yeah,
in their
overdoing it.
display.
Yeah,
Or
which
more
is
aggressive.
really
I should say
interesting.
more
More
aggressive, more
aggressive,
aggressive, yeah.
right? Um, which I didn't really see a whole lot of,
Oh,
but
okay.
yeah, there's some trans men, but not many. Um, but and I'm not saying, and I don't want it to come off me saying
Well,
that
you
trans
think I
women.
didn't see trans men. The thing is, trans men are much more able to sort of disappear into mainstream society because of the power
Mhm,
of testosterone than trans women are.
sure, sure. Um, we I don't want it to come across that I'm saying that trans women downplay their performance. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying that I wonder if there's some subconscious component of this where maybe they do it without really thinking about it, or maybe they do it because do you know what I'm trying to say? Like it's
Yeah, yeah,
not an overt behavior.
right.
Like it might be something that they've developed
Mm.
in order
As a
to
coping,
maintain.
yeah, right.
Yeah, and then therefore it kind of plays out in their
Mm.
performance. Because you see trans women not win a lot,
Mm.
even on the individual level. You see
Yeah,
trans women who don't win, who don't get the podium positions.
right.
Um, and I wondered if some of that might be playing out, or they're just not that athletic. Which I think brings me to one of my last points, is that when we're talking about trans folks in sports, we never talk about when they transition and when they were an athlete. Because I know some trans folks in Derby that were not athletic, transitioned, and then tried to become athletic. It was really tough for them
Yeah.
versus someone who spent years being an athlete and then transitioned and then went into women's sports. Like that, I think is different than someone who, was just an average person, maybe even slightly feminine who slightly different feminine male
Mm.
when they were men,
Mhm.
um, who weren't athletic, who didn't, develop their body. They transition and then try to become an athlete. I think that journey and that um, uh, development would be vastly difficult, even
Mm.
more difficult than, like I said, someone who was an athlete beforehand.
Well, athleticism isn't just about your biology, it's also about your skill, right? From my perspective, each sport, there's people are trained in their respective sports because there are skills that are necessary in order to compete or perform well. So if you're an athlete who is performing on the high bar, well, you have to learn how where your center of gravity is and how you want to spin, and there are skills that you have to acquire. So
Hmm.
I, to me, it seems logical that someone who wasn't previously athletic and then tried to go into athleticism was disadvantaged because he didn't have the skill level as well.
Well, that comes with training.
Right, exactly.
But that comes from your body, like, your biology, like, you can have only
To
so
some
much grit,
degree,
like.
but it's kind of like not everybody can be a brain surgeon. You have to have training for that.
Well, that's a lot of intelligence too, but I think I'm.
I mean, as someone who's in roller derby, if you're a blocker, don't you have to learn the individual skill set to be a successful blocker beyond mass?
Sure,
As I've
but
watched
being
you
big.
go to the roller skating rink to practice by
Mhm,
yourself and how to,
sure,
how to turn and all, there's skills there are skills as well.
right,
Okay.
but at a certain level, when you're talking about, like, top tier performance, you have that biological component of being able to do things or not. You
Okay.
either you have the strength and stamina to move the body you have, or to some extent.
Right.
So if you are familiar with your body, if you're an athlete and you're used to that prior to your transition,
Mm,
your sport, being an athlete after your transition is going to be easier.
mm,
I think someone who wasn't an athlete transitions and then tries to be an athlete is going to find it much more difficult. I
yeah.
think, well, speaking of trans women, I
Yeah.
think it's going to find it much more difficult. I think
I agree.
trans men actually going to find it a little bit easier, especially if they're taking hormones, because testosterone does help your athletic performance. It absolutely. I mean, testosterone is a performance
Yeah,
enhancing drug. Like
yeah.
it just is. Like
As
whether
I'm
I,
sitting here talking to you, I'm like, and listening, this cut in my bicep catches my eye. That is not from going to the gym. I haven't set foot in a gym in a year. That literally is strictly because of the fact that I'm on testosterone.
yeah,
I've done
yeah,
nothing. So
testosterone does help.
testosterone is a powerful hormone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then, if you're not athletic and you transition, you're a trans woman. You weren't
Mhm.
athletic prior to your transition, and now you're taking estrogen,
Mhm.
and other types of blockers. That is going to inhibit your ability to be athletic
Mhm.
quite a
Yes.
bit,
Yes.
I think,
Yes.
because you don't have that foundation. Because I've trained, like it's amazing what people don't realize too with age. Like the older you get, if you weren't athletic prior and you're trying to be athletic in older age,
Yeah.
whew, it is tough. It is
It's a
not
lot
easy to
harder.
do.
It's a
It's a
lot
lot
harder.
harder.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
you don't know how to be coached. You don't know how to push your body. You don't know the
Right.
limits of your body and how to move past them. Like
Well,
it's a
and just
lot to
age
learn.
related slowing down too. Yeah.
That too,
Right.
absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. And that's why they, they show testosterone replacement for men who
Yep.
get older and their testosterone drops, like
Yep.
especially if you were athletic, like
Yep.
that's a big thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's definitely an advantage to that. But
Right.
again, I wanted to point out the different nuances that just make this more complicated that people, just as we're saying, like you can't lump all this together.
Right.
Like you have to look at the athleticism prior to transition. You have to look at team sports versus individual sports.
Mm.
You have to look at the mental component of the displays of femininity and masculinity with the person who transitioned.
Mm.
Like, is that playing a role in their athletic ability?
Right.
I think there's a lot more to this. And again, going back as we
Why?
dive into this, why?
Why?
Why
Yeah.
gender? What's
That's
the
a
purpose?
fascinating question. Why gender?
Yeah,
What's the point? Right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
I
I
I
feel
can't
like,
recall. I can't recall any colleagues having the why question. That
mhm,
doesn't.
me either.
No.
Yeah, and I feel like once we can start answering that question, we can start looking at trans folks in sports as well,
Mm.
to make it just a clearer picture of like, all right, well, what are we really getting wrapped up
Yeah.
about
Yeah. Yeah.
when we're talking
Exactly.
about trans people in sports?
Right.
Like, is it really just bigotry? Is it just, this issue? Like, it's much more complicated than that. Like, we need to
Mhm.
be able to have these conversations and dive into these thoughts a little bit deeper rather than just saying, like you were saying, how can we tell the difference between the predator and the just the actual trans person? It's
Right.
like, well, if you dive into these questions a little deeper rather than just throwing the baby out with the bathwater, maybe you'll be able to answer that question a little better.
Right. 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 Right.
So yeah,
That's a lot to chew on.
it's a lot to chew on.
That's why, like, this has been a more of a sort of thought experiment episode for me because I just
Mhm.
didn't delve into it far enough to consider the nuances of whatever narrative was being presented in terms of
Yeah,
the sexological approach to gender. It was non-judgmental support, period.
yeah,
So, um, yeah.
yeah.
Well, I don't think we're gonna. I don't think we're gonna offend as many people as you thought, because
I don't think so either.
I think this is a reasonable question because it could answer a number of other questions. Maybe,
Hmm.
perhaps,
Maybe
yeah,
we can hope. All right. Well, that's all I had. You were talking
and
about
lower the
this, and
tone. It might help lower the tone,
yeah,
right? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Maybe I'm just going, "Hey, Josh, rah rah," and I'm full of shit. I don't know. And other people go, "Victoria, shut up." Yeah, I don't. I don't know.
But I think it's that we don't know. But I think asking these
Right.
questions is important, and I think
Yeah.
looking at again, like we always talk about, looking at the nuances is important. Team sports,
Well,
individual
yeah.
sports, all this stuff. It plays a
When
bigger
we
role
don't
than
ask the
people want to
questions,
believe.
then we have a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
And that,
Yeah.
unfortunately, this last week, I have seen article after article after article after article being written about the end of critical thinking and freedom of expression on university campuses.
Hmm.
Article after article after article after article that academia is shutting down free thought and free expression.
Yeah.
And my generation was college is where you go, academia is where you go to challenge thoughts,
Hmm.
challenge narratives, challenge um, preconceived notions by delving into them, thinking critically about them, and pulling them apart and doing research on them.
Right. And
Yeah.
doing research on
And
good
now it's kind of
research.
like,
Good data.
well, whatever's popular is getting funded, and those schools of thought seem to be in the same camp. Whatever's the safest,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
they whoever's yelling the loudest is getting the funding.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, even some of my most high profile colleagues are literally becoming rather what could be construed as, I don't want to say right wing, but people are lumping them into the conservative camp.
Hmm.
And they're not conservatives. Not
Right.
none of my colleagues are conservatives. I have
I
some
think you.
religious colleagues, but even they are not necessarily conservative as it is, as the media would define what conservative or right wing.
Mhm. I think even some of the conversation we had today, if someone took it out of context, and I
Yeah.
know I don't say things correctly all the time,
Yeah.
and that's fine. But that's part of it too. Is there's
Well, yeah.
such a big thing of language police that if you don't say things properly the first time, they're attacking the language you use rather than the point you're trying to make.
Mhm.
And I see that a lot, and I think
Well,
that's a big issue.
especially in woke
Yeah,
circles.
yeah.
They
It's
attack the
all.
they attack the language that you're using
Mhm.
instead of saying, "Okay, let's pick apart your did you mean this? What, you know, let's pick apart your what you're saying and explore the thoughts." It's immediately um this sort of like almost fascistic attitude towards the use of certain words,
Mhm.
right? That
Yeah, when really
just
the point I
just
was trying
having
to make that.
just having this
Yeah.
conversation, well, not maybe this conversation, but just having a conversation about should pronouns be legislated or should they be written into school code for primary and secondary school, that's then seen as, well, your words are violence. It's like,
Mhm.
right, you're challenging me, therefore you're being violent. Well,
No.
and
That's.
that's primarily, at least in terms of these topics, coming from the left,
Mhm.
which makes
Right,
them
defending
very
the
odd
violence.
bedfellows with the right and, religious conservatism.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so weird.
It's very weird.
Awesome.
It's very weird. So, well, I appreciate you pretty much carrying the conversation because uh, like I said, I don't, I don't dive into those arguments so much because so many of my colleagues are up in arms about it. And
Mhm.
again, my area of expertise, which has had to refine itself over the last, especially 18 months, is more on predatory sexual behavior than it is on gender. So I
Mhm.
I mean, even asking the question, I almost don't feel qualified to even ask the question why gender because my knowledge is so it's focused elsewhere.
Yeah.
So, what's the answer? Why?
I don't know, I don't have one.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't have one. If
What
it's
does
that
sociology
biological.
say? Or is sociology just saying this is because of social construct?
Yeah, we mostly talk about how it's used, how we,
Oh.
thinking about gender roles and gender norms and things like that, how it's constructed, not really why it's constructed.
Oh.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, what's the purpose?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, we know a lot of people out there who do this kind of stuff. You got to
You do.
answer, smarty pants.
Yeah, hopefully. Try to get this up on YouTube. Oh, my camera, how fuzzy.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
I agree.
there we go. try to
Yeah.
get this up on YouTube and try to send it around. Maybe somebody will watch it, be like, "Oh, well,
Right.
here's the purpose." No, no, I don't like. I have a general idea of like why we have it, but you know, specifically, what's the purpose of gender,
Right.
if not just a means of categorization? And if that's the case, then
Well, or mate attraction, like you said
yeah,
earlier.
something
Um,
like that. Identity. All right. Well, why you need it for your identity? Because the world constructs itself that way. All right. Why does the world construct itself that way? Well, you got
I
to
keep
dive into
feeling
it
like it's
somewhere.
going to lead us back to biology.
I think so too. Honestly, I hate to say it, but I think so too. I think
Yeah,
it's going to send us back to biology. I think it's going to
biology and
send us back to
reproduction.
those. Yeah,
Right.
and it just gets inflated on top of that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, anyway. Well, that's all I had.
Okay.
Just little mental masturbation there
Yeah.
for everyone to
Well,
join
I
in
know.
on.
Like I said, I was more listening because I'm like, I don't even know where to start with that question.
Yeah, it's a tough question for sure.
It is a hard question. Like, but you're really good at
Mhm.
making people think. So,
Good. Yeah,
um,
hopefully somebody will send us an answer. That'd be great, or at least a speculative answer.
you eroticize intellectualism there, Josh.
No, it's gonna be someone on TikTok telling me I'm a fascist, racist, like homophobe or
Well, then they're just
transphobe. That's
taking
what
the
I'm gonna get.
sexiness out of it.
Yeah, that's exactly what's gonna happen. This is gonna wind up on TikTok. Oh, this transphobe doesn't know the purpose of gender.
Oh,
Fuck.
well, you're fucked then.
Yeah. Oh well, at least I'll be on TikTok. Okay.
And with
Anyway,
that,
yeah. All right.
Josh's
That's
next
all I had.
goal is getting onto TikTok. So let's make it happen for him, everybody. All right.
I do have a TikTok. It's
Let's see that.
almost.
Go to
Yeah,
Josh's
I do have a
TikTok.
Tik. Yeah, it's almost Dr. Josh. I think. Yeah,
Almost Dr.
almost
Josh.
Dr. Yeah,
Is it like a at? I'm not even on TikTok.
I don't remember.
Oh.
Maybe at almost something like that. I don't really use it all that much. I mean, I get sucked into TikTok quite a bit. Don't download it. It'll take all
I
your
have
time.
not. I have not. Actually, I'm finding like I am growing increasingly impatient with Twitter. Uh,
Yeah.
I literally at this point I'm just like reposting stuff like um articles that have been published or whatever and similar things. Today's favorite cat moment. I'm like I'm growing so
Yeah.
just bored of Twitter, and I've really started. I mean, it's been kind of growing, but I've really come to enjoy Instagram. I know I'm not using it right, but I've come to enjoy it.
Hmm.
Um, and Facebook, I just use it to stay in touch with like friends and family.
Sure. Sure.
So, well, me personally, anyway. I mean, we have a museum Facebook that we post stuff on, but meh.
Yeah.
Social media in general is boring me to tears at this point.
Yeah. It's kind of getting redundant or
It's
repetitive.
like it's getting old.
Yeah.
I can we get back to like hanging out in person? Like
Talking crazy.
just hey, let's go to the coffee shop and sit around a table and bullshit for fuck this social media crap.
Or having a friend drop by unannounced.
Oh, well, I don't know about
Oh my
that so
god.
much. But having friends come over, I have not hosted a dinner party in years. And
Mhm.
part of that, there were reasons that I'm not going to get into. But since the pandemic, it's been since the pandemic. And I'm like, and I cook like shit, but I'm like, I'm gonna cook you some shit food or order it out, and you're gonna come over and hang out so we can just bullshit in person. Like, just
Mhm.
come over,
Yeah. Like
you know?
the formal dinner party, like let's bring those back where you
Right?
where you have topics of every like it's like, all right, we're gonna discuss this topic
Yeah,
and over this
yeah,
course of meals,
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That sounds fun.
Yeah.
That sounds fun. So, right. With that, do we even have a topic for next time? I don't even know.
I don't think so, not yet. We'll come up
I
with
want to
something,
get
I'm sure.
into. Okay, then I'm gonna pick one right now.
All right.
I want to be contrarian in the spiritualization of sexual communities.
Can you be more specific?
That there are camps in uh, sexual studies, sexual education, sexual outreach that turn it into the
There you
yogi spiritual thing, and it's only acceptable from that spiritual perspective. Like, um, a good example would be there was a sect in Arizona. They've since gone defunct, and actually, the founder has gone to prison. Who had a commune and did yoni massages. And,
go.
yep, and eventually went to prison for pimping. For and I know about this particular case because one of my mentors went to court as one of the expert witnesses for this particular case, and they were shut down, and the owner was fined for pandering, and I think is might still be in jail. I'm not sure. Um, but the spiritualization of sex, and I use that in contrast to one of the cultures that you like, which is hookup culture. Okay, so I want to do sort of a contrast between um, hookup culture or casual sex culture and turning these communities, certain one of these sex positive communities, into spiritualization, and that only spiritual sex is the good kind of sex to have.
But it's really the same thing, they just add spirituality to it?
I want to look at the positives and negatives of it.
Okay,
Yeah. Can we do that next time, please?
sure.
Okay.
Yeah, let's do that.
I'll get some paperwork. I'll get some papers together.
That'd be great.
Okay, cool.
Alright.
All
Well,
right.
thanks for joining us.
Thank you
Again,
guys.
Facebook, Twitter, Instagram,
See you next
my
time.
TikTok,
Yep.
all the
I
things.
don't know.
Yeah, come find us. We're
Yeah.
terrible at this. We're terrible at this social media stuff.
Yep.
I wish I had somebody that just was like, "I'm so passionate about your podcast. Let me do all this stuff for you." I'd be like, "Fine, do it." So fucking awful at
Honestly, I think
anyway.
our conversations are too winding and complicated for most people to get interested anyway. But there are those few, and we appreciate them very much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
So, all right. We'll see you next time.
bye.
Bye.